Hey everybody, Jake Reichbart here. Today I'm going to share with you a lengthy lesson excerpt. So have your guitars ready and we're going to have some fun together arranging a song. Perhaps you've seen some of my many hundreds of solo guitar arrangements I have here on YouTube, and the inspiration for these arrangements is right here behind me, as you can see. I grew up with these vinyls, and I draw pretty much from any kind of style imaginable from the pop music of the past 100 years, everything from Glenn Miller to Van Halen, Alan Holdsworth to Motown, and pretty much anything in between. Beatles, I have perhaps 25 Beatles song arrangements, 20 Steely Dan song arrangements, same for Stevie Wonder, rock, hard rock, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and of course tons and tons of classic jazz standards from the 40s and 50s, bebop, dance tunes, movie themes. And if you want to learn how to arrange any of these songs for solo guitar, I can teach you. Just like the excerpt that you're about to watch, which comes from a lesson that runs about 90 minutes, I have nearly 200 additional titles, and they are mostly song specific. I enjoy teaching through specific songs because I can show you hands-on how I approach arranging a song. What's nice about these lessons is that I don't just tell you, do this and you're done, but rather I'll take you through 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to play the same passage. I'll work with you on dynamics, on articulation, and 100 other things that you cannot just put to paper. As I mentioned, these lessons run approximately 90 minutes. The introduction, which runs usually 15 minutes, focuses on the right hand and rhythm, and in this introduction I go through my 3 pillars of rhythmic arranging, the first principle being melody and bass only, the second being rhythmic arpeggiation, and the third, of course, the down stroke that I play with my right hand fingernails to produce that backbeat that everybody asks me about. Nevertheless, I do have 2 main method lessons. The first one, how to arrange any song for solo guitar, running 2 hours, and also an introduction to fingerstyle guitar and solo guitar arranging, running 2 hours and 40 minutes. The information about these lessons, the cost, my full lesson list, as well as a link to the full performance of the song that we're working on today is below in the information. So expand the information, take a look, and let's get started. And let's jump in right away with the famous, very familiar introduction, which is also the interlude and possibly one of the most recognizable sounds from this song and all of bossa nova, really. One of the famous lines, musical lines. And right away we are faced with a lot of options because the A note, the bass A note, can be played fretted on the 6th string, 5th fret, or just open, if it's going to be open. Or as we mentioned, we can do it this way. And if you do it this way, after you hit the 2nd note, this note remains as an accompaniment. I'm only mentioning this not necessarily for you to try to do every one of these, although that would be highly recommended, of course. But just because, we have so many options to do the same very simple thing, that little simple melody right there, C-A-G-A, can be played in so many different ways that it is just worth exploring a little bit. Of course, if nothing else, you could do it here, and it would be not too difficult to then, inside the same position, to play that 2nd chord I kind of mentioned briefly in the introduction, which was that F sharp. So again, not to confuse things too much, but just the idea that I want to put in your head is that there's a lot of different ways to do the very same thing, and it's worth exploring on your own. So, what do I do on the video? I do probably something like this. I start by placing a bar on the 5th fret. That bar will provide me 2 notes right away, which is the melody note C on the 3rd string, 5th fret, as well as the bass note that we mentioned, the A. That will be followed by two melody notes, which are the A and G on the 4-string frets 7 and 5. Now, if I was not going to change the harmony, the simplest thing to do is to play that A note again. And remember the arpeggiation, not arpeggiation, but syncopation that I mentioned. That last A note was syncopated, while the bass note was on the beat. And then we can continue from there. I did mention in the introduction that I add another chord just for harmonic interest, and that would be the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 in the open position. I play the C on the 2nd string 1st fret along with the A on the 3rd string, E on the 4th string, and the F sharp on the 6th string, all on the 2nd fret. But the melody note that I'm aiming for is the A, which now is not going to be here on the 4th string, but on the 3rd string. So it's a quick switch. And if I wanted to play the next note, the next C note, while this chord is still ringing, I have to kind of make sure to finger it properly, which is to say that the bottom note, the bass note, will be played with the 2nd finger, the E with the 3rd finger, the A with the 4th finger, and the C with the 1st finger. I'm going to pluck that C note in just a moment, just before going here. So again. Okay, again. 3 melody notes in this position: C, A, G. Don't forget, syncopated melody note on the beat bass note, and the next melody note is the C. So there are 3 rhythmic stops or steps that are happening on this very one chord right here. The first one is hitting this melody note, the A, which is syncopated. The next one is hitting the bass note, and you can, this extra chord note, this E, you can decide if you wanted to play it along with the A or along with the F sharp. It's up to you. Both options are available. And the third rhythmic step is then, to play this C melody note, which precedes this next melody note. So I'll demonstrate slowly. Of course, by the time you add some rhythm and arpeggiation, a little bit of that arpeggiation that I mentioned, it's a little bit more, it has a little bit more of a flowing sense. Next chord is a B7 in the 7th position. The melody that I play with it is this D sharp on the 3rd string, 8th fret. I really only play 3 notes here. With my first finger I play the B on the 6th string, 7th fret. Second finger plays the A on the 4th string, 7th fret. And my third finger plays the D sharp on the 3rd string, 8th fret. And to achieve the movement of da, 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 between the D sharp and the D, there's several things that I can do. The simplest thing that I can do since there's plenty, it goes by fast enough. So if I let go of the chord, no big deal, because a new chord comes in momentarily. But if I really wanted to make sure to maintain the chord, I could, instead of playing it with individual fingers, I could play the chord with a bar. And then, after I play these three notes together, I can continue to play the D sharp, D sharp, D natural, D sharp, while these two notes are still vibrating, still resonating. I didn't feel that it was something that was so critical that had to be done. Sometimes I might do it. Another thing you can do is slide back this one note along with a note on the fourth string. And to maintain the B, now you can play with your thumb. The simplest thing to do, if you just want to keep going, is just to play the chord while the D sharp is being played. Drop the chord, let go of the chord for the slide down to D and back to D natural. Back to D sharp. And then you have a new chord happening already, so the harmony is not left open or, let's say, neglected. There's always a chord ringing nearby. But again, there are several options to play this passage. If you didn't want to lose the chord, one, like we said, was the bar. The other one was sliding the D sharp to D, as well as sliding the A to G sharp and back, and then fingering the B with a thumb. All excellent options, and they're equally good. And as I mentioned earlier, the reason to try to learn many of these is so that every time you play the song, you don't do exactly the same thing, even within the same performance. This line, as we are going to see, is going to repeat numerous times in the song. Why do it exactly the same way every time? Let alone if you can do the whole thing in a different position. Let's not forget, we can do the whole thing down here. It's the same notes exactly, except that they're shifted one string up. So 5th string, 3rd string, and 2nd string. Now the whole introduction is available to play in that lower position here. Go for it. Try all these different ways.